myself too much. check this out. I went to visit when I was 7, and I was like, begged my mom, can I stay here?
Of course you do.
And I begged every day for a month. And she was like, all right, let's try a semester.
So you saw
7 years
Carnival,
later,
and then you decided you had to be there.
I was too young to see Carnival, but I saw
Of course you
Carnival.
saw.
But no, so I was listening to calypso,
Mm-hmm.
soca, the Caribbean music. I was listening to hip hop from America.
Mm-hmm.
I was listening to not classical music,
Yeah.
not classical music at all. I mean, that classical music was not in the culture.
So to be clear, you were Trinidadian, or you were?
I'm American.
You're American,
Yeah.
but you visited.
Yeah, my mother's family is from that neck of the woods.
And then you decided this is where you wanted to sort of be for a minute. Wise choice for a child. Very clear cut.
Yeah, to be away from home.
Yeah, yeah.
Home was so far away, but the beach was right there.
Where was home in the States?
North Carolina.
Yeah, I could see how Trinidad would be nicer.
I think I was just independent. I was like, let me create something of my own here.
So you're listening to all of these Caribbean sounds. And then when was this? Like what time?
Year wise, this is
Mhm.
93 to about 2000.
My mother used to talk about how back when she was a kid growing up in the Caribbean, you would get radio stations from all around the Caribbean. So you were actually listening to the sounds of the Caribbean all over.
Oh, yeah, that's very
And
true.
right, so you were probably listening to a lot of different things coming from Cuba and Puerto Rico and
And I'm older. I'm not a spring chicken, so I'm from the generation that we had 3 channels,
mm-hmm.
3 television channels. So we no smartphones.
Mm-hmm.
Internet was primitive. Windows 95 existed, but I kind of enjoy that I had that one foot in that generation and one foot in the more modern wave of things, because we had to develop memory.
Right.
We hear something, we may not ever hear that again. Like you hear that even 8-track. People used to record. People had their tape
Right.
tape recorders ready. Oh shit, there's that song again. So we cherish things a little more when it was less accessible.
You were still making mixtapes.
I was.
Man.
I was.
Right.
Still am. Still am, but I'm legally making mixtapes that I'm purchasing.
So that's your Sonic reference.
Yeah.
And then you were 6 or 7 when you were in?
Yeah, 7.
Okay, and then when did you come back?
14.
Wow, you stayed there a long time.
Put in some time.
Did you start taking lessons while you were there?
I did. I took lessons. Yeah, my grandma was like, who I was living with, was like, you gotta get some art in you. I was playing basketball and sports, and local basketball courts were breeding grounds for
Trouble.
activities. Yeah, for trouble. And my family was like, nah, let's get some musical culture in him. So they tried to get me to do piano, and I hated it.
Also, you're 6'4", right? Isn't that how tall you are?
6'1".
Okay.
I ain't that tall.
Well, I mean, I'm 5 feet. So if you're 5'6", you're 6'4" to me.
Once you're above 6 feet.
I mean,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
7'2". It's all the same.
Yo,
Okay.
I'm here.
Just taller than me. Okay. So who was what? So you got the local piano teacher.
Yeah, it was like one person that was an opera singer that could teach the fundamentals of piano.
Was she good?
I mean, she was not a pianist, but she taught me how to read music.
Mm-hmm.
But I skipped most of the lessons, unfortunately. I was not interested. And
You know who also did that?
You did?
Duke Ellington.
Dang. Well, he didn't never need it. That's the difference. I need it.
All right, so you skipped a lot of piano lessons.
I skipped a lot of piano. And then I heard when I was visiting my family, I would come back to visit often. And I heard in the Greuler Encyclopedia. Anybody know that? When the encyclopedia existed in CD-ROM state? It was in Carta and Greuler. So they had a multimedia section. So I was like, let me check this out. So it's kind of cool. I saw like clips of Neil Armstrong, you know, the moon speech. I saw Kennedy. I saw MLK, Malcolm X, like little 10-second sound bites. So I ate up all that. It was cool to check out. Then I was like, let me check out this classical music section. It's boring. You know, you get bored and you're like, well, let me check out all this. And then I heard the Chopin Nocturne, and I listened to it like 400 times, and it was like a 10-second clip.
Which one was it?
Opus 9, number 2.
Can you play a little bit for us?
Yeah, I'll play a little bit. I don't really remember it. Too much pressure with that piece. It's like, if you say it's the piece that started it all. That was where it cut too. So it was just that little phrase, and I was like, "What is this sound? I never knew music could make me feel that way." Mm-hmm. So it stuck with me, and then I took it a little more seriously.
You had to get to know that.
I had to, and then that was too hard, so I did the progression.
You're like, I'll study something.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'll actually learn it.
Okay, so then you come back to the States. You find a piano teacher. Where in the States? Did you go to North Carolina School for the Arts?
Well, before that, I was just in North Carolina, small town North Carolina.
Okay.
And there was local churches and a lot of teachers. And just the usual way. I never wanted to play scales, and I never had interest in building the fundamentals to be a musician. It was just music. And then I met a teacher who taught me that to study a piece is to, use it as an exercise. Every piece has its own technical challenge that it brings, and use that mentality. Like something we were talking about earlier, the Hungarian way of beating legato and these things into people. Sometimes like learning to listen. That's what practicing is.
Yeah.
So I kind of had the right people to put that in at an early age.
So then, how did you get to the Schubert Impromptu? Like, when was that for you? When was first contact for you?
First contact was in college, North Carolina School of the Arts. My teacher asked me to play Schubert, and I was listening to Schubert, and everything was like long and not as interesting as Beethoven.
Were you listening to those Schubert sonatas?
Those things.
Oh, yeah, the 45 minutes of, we're still doing this? Okay.
Which is now my favorite shit ever.
Of course.
Oh my, yeah.
But
really, I vibe to Schubert now. But at that age, I didn't want to. So the Impromptu was like, oh, that's beautiful. It's short.
Yeah. Let
me learn that. And so it's been interesting to see how that piece has changed as I hear things differently.
That Impromptu has been described as one of the most beautiful pieces he ever wrote. I happen to disagree.
Cool.
I
think he wrote a lot of beautiful things.
He did write a lot of beautiful things.
I don't compare, I don't rank in that way.
But I, as I was listening to you play it, I was like, okay, I see what people are saying. But was that piece assigned to you, or did you hear it and want to play it? Is what I'm asking.
Yeah, I just listened to a lot, and then Schubert was assigned, and then I picked that particular piece.
Over you preferred that over like the 142s, Opus 142.
Yeah, they seemed more difficult at the time.
Okay, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Interesting.
But yeah, it was just more. I think I'd known that Horowitz and all the all the OGs had a recording of it.
Mhm.
So I was like, oh, it'd be cool to know people like it. When you start gigging at that age too, you know what?
Oh well, yeah.
Retirement home people like this.
The old folks like it.
Yeah, it wasn't New York. I knew my audience.
You knew your audience. Chopin Nocturne, Schubert Impromptu.
Yeah, a little bit of light Beethoven.
Mendelssohn Song Without Words.
There you go.
You knew what to do. All the spots to hit. Right.
Yeah, little
So
Samuel Taylor. No. Little Mumford.
Okay, but wait. When you first learned it, what were the challenges?
It's in a hard key. For musicians in the audience, it's like 6 flats. So it's like every note you see, you have to do one extra step of translation. And when you're not comfortable in those, it just seemed to be strange enough. And it was a cool challenge because you can approximate. Because if you do one thing wrong, you're like, oh, it disrupts the color of what he was creating. So it forced you to like really develop your ear to see what's kind of like how Messiaen is, like practicing that kind of French music.
Did it force you to master that key? Like, was that the piece that made you master that scale?
I felt confident in that key at that point.
At that point, you do it, yeah.
But then another piece would come in and knock you down.
You're like, oh, I don't know it as well as I thought I did.
Like the Janacek, the Poadka, the cello duos. It's how many flats? Right.
Just when you think you've got it. So then, so you learned this in conservatory.
Yeah.
And then, when did you come back to it?
I think when I came back to New York for grad school, I was doing the bigger chunks.
Stony Brook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you were doing the whole set?
Yeah, I was doing both cycles, the Opus 90 and the Opus 142.
You did it for a doctoral degree or a master's degree?
No, I had gigs, so I was doing it. Like
okay.
The Opus 90 in one concert, and then Opus 142 paired with like, other
right.
things.
But then that becomes like a different question because now you're talking about scope, right? You're talking about not just the piece, but the piece as it lays with the rest of Opus 90, and then how that sits against 142. How was that?
I mean, it felt like a sonata.
Yeah.
When you put the 4 of them together, it's like suddenly 40 minutes or 35 minutes, and you're like, how do I keep interest?
For yourself,
and
then for the audience.
Yeah, for me first. But we can easily love these things that we slave over. But for the audience, that's the main thing.
Did you find that it how you understood it, Opus 90 number 3, how you understood it was one thing, and then in the context of 3 of 4, you understood it differently?
No, it never shifted in its, like the lighting never changed on it, no matter what was around it. Like the piece has its own, I think it's one of these, this is very frou-frou, but I feel like there are some pieces that are metaphysically already happening, and we just are, these arpeggios. A lot of people describe that Schubert as water or something, right? They hear this water background, and we know this because of Schubert wrote 600 songs, and 100 of them mention water, and the way he sets water is very similar to these accompaniments, and there's German text with it, so we have word to music to actually see how his color, musically coloring mind worked. And but that opening, it has, really, I feel like it's happening already, and we just tap into it's like it's flowing, and you're like, all right, my turn to jump into this pond. But there are other pieces that the moment you play the first chord, it begins cosmically in your own microcosm, that is. But so it hasn't shifted in scope. I mean, I may, if I improvise before, it definitely changes the initial approach.
If you improvise before you start the Schubert.
Before I start, and then I did there. If I connect it, then it may blur the concepts, but I wouldn't say my playing has changed that much of it until I started improvising and doing jazz and really hearing harmony, trying to study to hear harmony differently and hear all the colors and shadings and voice leadings, like really watching the matrices unfold, not in a not in a Neo way. I mean the linear voice leading.
So
does that make sense?
it
What
does
I'm saying?
make
Okay,
sense. It
yeah,
does make
yeah.
sense. Does anyone have any questions so far?
Yeah, please. We just chilling.
Well, you just kind of made a jump from talking about classical to jazz. So what was that transition like? How did that evolve?
I'll proceed it by saying my improvisation up to moving to New York was Baroque. Like I studied the Baroque kind of style, and so Mozart is one of my favorite composers. Bach as well. So my goal was to be able to improvise a prelude in the Bach style or a Mozartian style, and also improvise a cadenza in a piano concerto. So that was like, when I did that, I was like, I can quit music now. That's all I want to do. So I had that kind of improvisation in a, and that's kind of more imitative and it's easier because you have obvious material to choose from. But when I moved to New York, I was like, why can't I play Rachmaninoff and hard shit, Schumann, Scriabin, but not sit down with blues musicians playing three chords and feel authentic and feel able to converse. So then I went to Stony Brook, where there's some alumni chilling here. What up? And I saw improvisation by this jazz trombonist. So I signed up for this class, and it was a guy named Ray Anderson who played with Braxton and Mingus. So heavy hitters, and he'd been running that program for 15 years. So I show up on day one, and it's all these classical musicians ready to learn jazz. And he walks in, and he's like, "This ain't jazz, baby." And then he proceeds to do like 10 minutes of just the weirdest shit I've ever heard on trombone, but really versatile. And I was like, I'm so out. I don't want anything to do with this class. But I stayed it out. I stayed for the rest of the hour and 50 minutes, and then I was like, I realized the class was for classical musicians to feel comfortable enough to create by looking at their inner critic and saying, "You chill over there in the corner right now, because I'm trying to make something." Because to be a great classical musician, you have to have your teacher and your metaphorical teacher standing over your shoulder, or your own critic sitting in the audience just saying, reacting to things in real time. And sometimes when you're creating, that's the least helpful person in the room. And his approach was through avant-garde free improvisation. So it was almost finding, a lot of times when classical musicians go into jazz, it's like the same methodology we approach. We're like, all right, let's get the jazz scales. We're so cerebral, we think we are, that we learn all these chords and shit, and we learn all the rules. Because it is I too.
Oh my God.
It is I.
How do you know?
It is. It is we. We are all in it together.
Because I feel like I'm not practicing right unless I'm like, I've got a plan, like a lesson plan that's like, and today we're going to do the 12-bar blues, and we're going to do it in these keys.
And we have the Aebersold backing track. And that's
You're
cool.
not doing it right. You're not doing it right.
But to me, that's the approach of, here's this protected dome of jazz, and we're trying to penetrate into this membrane, as opposed to
and master it.
Yeah, exactly. That's we're taught mastery is achievable. But the other approach of free improv was, I kind of describe it as glossolalia. Y'all know this term? Like speaking in tongues?
Yeah.
So that you just find pure syntax what is my natural language stripped away from any meaning, but still expressing what kind of, like, if you can't sit at the piano and play happy without going to it, can we play happy? Can we play sad?
Mm-hmm.
So finding that way to channel the basic human emotions and then moving on. So it was more like you find your nucleus of sound, and bluegrass is a subset, which I love, or country music, or R&B. But then you do your work, but you have the structure of, this is my language, and now I shape it to that, as opposed to, let me imitate the Abrasol, or let me be religiously devoted to the omnibooks, you know,
Right.
the Parker transcriptions, which are amazing, and I did study, but I try not to be bogged down by it. And I'm still a student. I say this with no vote of confidence. It's all, I feel like the learning is never ending.
Are you going to engrave your arrangement of the Black and Tan Fantasy?
No. I should.
I
I should. The version, it changes every time.
I understand that, but also, like, it would be such a gift for a pianist.
But actually, I'm writing a version for orchestra.
You're writing
and my trio for next month in Maryland. I'm writing a Black and Tan too.
Version
So it
for
will be
your
codified.
Okay.
So then I could probably make a piano arrangement. But thank you for for your words.
I thought it was spectacular.
Oh, thank you. Did y'all record? I want to listen to it at some
Of
point.
course we recorded. What do you think?
I'm just joking. I'm just joking.
Studio. The one thing
did you hit
we
the
are
on
doing.
button?
James is like, I'm a professional.
Shout out to James.
What do you think this is?
Yako. Thank you.
Because because one of the things that you did was you actually, like, I've watched the movie several times, and I've listened to it a couple of times, and there are so many moments where you, instead of going full out, you actually backed away. Like, you chose to be subtle and nuanced, where it was a little bit more, in the original track, sassy and wah-wah with the brass. And I thought that was a really nice touch.
Well, something about Duke Ellington, when you see videos of him at different ages, various ages playing piano, he was always a sophisticated player. It was
sophisticated,
dripping
dude.
Elegance. I mean, it was, and then you think about something like the Money Jungle recording. Do people know that with
I don't know it.
who is it? Mingus and Max Roach are fighting. It's a jazz trio album with Duke, and the drummer and the bass player are just fighting, like bad fights. Mingus is the one that threw the trombonist out of.
Musically fighting.
No,
No,
like,
fisticuffs fighting. Oh, okay.
Like scrappy.
Tell us more.
And then you hear the recording, and it makes sense, the edge that they bring to it. I'm not saying we need to.
Yeah, you are.
Off the record, no, I can't say anything.
So when did you first hear Black and Tan?
Black and Tan, I think shortly after that class. Because I had a deep dive. The other really random story that is kind of funny, I'll tell it quickly, is so the week after that, I was in New York. I was at Smalls. Do we all know Smalls? I was just at the Jam. I didn't know what Smalls was. I just knew it was a cool jazz club. I didn't know it was like...
Hasn't it closed?
It's open. They kind of had some things during COVID with maybe food.
I thought it had closed down for good.
No, Fat Cat closed down. The one with all the ping pong tables.
There's like a litany of clubs that have closed down for... It's very depressing.
Yeah,
but
Cleopatra's
I'm sorry.
Needle.
Gone.
But yeah, I was in Smalls, and my friend was like, "Yeah, come and listen to jazz. You play jazz, right?" I was like, "No, I took one class in weird improv." And So we had a nice evening. You know, we were drinking, went out clubbing, etc. So we got to Smalls at like 1 a.m. And then this, I was about to use a bad word. This dude signed me up for the jam without me knowing. So then all of a sudden I hear my name at like 2 a.m. and you know we're still drinking at this point. We're younger men partying, and I don't know. Smalls is like they'll take a picture and blacklist you if you sound bad. It's one
Wait,
of those
what?
like, oh yeah, they will blow a whistle. They will embarrass you, Hall of Shame, like Wall of Shame, all that.
Like the
But I didn't
Apollo
know this.
clown that'll brush you off the stage.
Same.
Oh.
More hostile. And I hear my name, I was like, let me go play. Because I don't know where
Because you
I'm at.
don't know where you are.
And it's late, and I had that liquid courage and youthful ignorance. And they said, let's do In a Sentimental Mood, which is a Duke Ellington classic. I didn't know what it was, what key it was in, who wrote it. But in one stroke of luck, I was like, let's do something more hip. And he's like, who the F you think you are? What's more hip? Because, you know, it's like a singer. It's like 7 people on stage for this open jam session of like friends invites. And I said, let's do Evidence by Monk, which is a tune that's super obscure, really weird. It's a tune that I had learned the sheet music as a corny classical musician. Like I could play the head with the most basic chords. Bump, bump. You understand? So I knew the harmony and the weird melody, and he was like,
But because it was random, you sounded like a badass.
but he was like, nobody ever called this tune. Let me talk to the singer. The singer was like, what is it? What's the changes? Like, oh, it's Just You, Just Me, which is an old American songbook. And she's like, yeah, let's do it.
Oh my God.
So I just started doing some classical weird shit. And it was like, yo, I never heard a sound like this. So I somehow survived. I survived, and people were like, here's my card.
Here's
play.
my card. Let's play.
So the first thing I did, I took my ass home and learned like 100 tunes that week.
That's hilarious.
You know, I learned all the, Autumn Leaves, etc., all the standards, just to be able to play
So
with
that
them.
you could walk into another jazz club.
No, to know that I'm never doing that again until I knew what the hell I was doing. Because I realized how lucky I got.
Very lucky.
I dodged the bullet, so I pieced out. But that's really how the jazz it was kind of forced really quickly. And New York is another thing. If you got to show up and put out, and if you don't, so I like that challenge. We all know these some of New York gangster freelancers here that have built some really cool things. But yeah.
I mean, not me. I tell people all the time.
Doctor,
I play
interviewer.
I mean, please. They be handing out doctorates left, right, and center.
Eric, give us a big up.
I'll take it.
No, this is cool. Thank you. Any more?
Anyone else have any questions?
I got a question.
Please.
So, you mentioned that when you first started playing piano, it was not a call to love. And that's actually something that we share that I did not know. Like when I first started playing cello, it was not at all a thing that I necessarily wanted to do. And I eventually fell in love with it because of a piece.
What piece was it? Yeah.
It was the first Bach cello suite. And I think they're very similar in like the effect that like it had on like the way it made the instrument sound to me, But I guess my question is, have you ever struggled with falling out of love with it?
The instrument or a piece?
The instrument. Because it is something that I've struggled with as someone that like came to the instrument, not in love with it. I have moments of like tension with it, and I just have ways of dealing with it. And I guess I was just curious if like you ever deal with that.
Oh, that's a cool question. I didn't know we had that similarity. I think I'm obsessed with it, and the way that my life is, I don't have time to practice
Yeah.
because I'm on tour maybe 8 months out the year, 9 months out the year, and sometimes I finish a long stretch and I'm like, I'm gonna go hibernate for 4 days, and then day one I'm at the piano. It's been 6 hours of playing, and I was like, I guess I'm not burnt out. I was just tired of not having enough time. So I'm cherishing the moments where I get lost in the moments where I can lock away and practice.
Well, it's a beautiful moment.
If that, but there's always things I'm like, shit, I gotta be preparing for this recital next month, whatever. You know, it's always something, some oven or some fire to be tending to.
Yeah.
But I like that. But that's a cool question. Yeah.
So you've never experienced being tired of the instrument, burnt out of the instrument itself, per se?
Well, not. I've probably been burnt out and physically tired from things, but not the falling out of love. That's the thing that I didn't feel yet. And but no, I'd be tired.
I think it's more of a falling out of love with the. It's probably more of an industry thing.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, especially like I got a new cello. I love my new cello. Can't get enough of it, but it doesn't mean the industry isn't a pain in the butt.
Oh yeah, the industry can be ass. Yeah. Pardon my French.
I mean, I've certainly fallen out of love with, I mean, I've definitely gone through an extended period of time where I can't stand to hear things anymore. And people come to visit and they're like, why is your apartment so silent? Because I'm like, I don't want to listen to anything at all. Thank you. Like I don't want to hear anybody practicing. I don't want to hear myself practicing. I don't want to teach anybody anything. I don't want to. And also that means that I'm not particularly interested in going to concerts either, which is unfortunate. That's an unfortunate space to be, because I've missed magical concerts being in that like, nah, I don't want to hear anything.
Well, that's honest of you, because if it's not helpful for you to be there if
Well,
it's going to be in.
I just need
in
the
that
silence.
vibe.
I just need breathing space or something.
I think musicians understand and value silence in a way that no one would ever understand, because our lives are noise.
Yeah, noise.
Yeah.
Or that it's the music is so constant that it starts to feel like noise.
It's like they don't understand that we can't listen to music without working.
Yeah. Yes.
Like we don't just have enjoyment.
Yeah.
It's like everything is analyzed.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I like play all these genres. When it gets to that point
You're like, now it's time for bluegrass.
of white noise, and it's like, oh shit,
You gotta shift.
D'Angelo.
It is like that.
Balinese gamelan.
It's like I'm going through a whole like re-falling in love with like classical music again, because I've like taken a break from it for so long, and it's like really nice.
Yeah.
It's just like the music genre pivoting is really awesome. It does help that.
Well, I mean, there's all these like walls that the music puts up, and you know what I mean. Like there's a lot of unpacking of shit to deal with classical music.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever hit like a technical wall that's unexpected?
Oh yeah.
No, I mean, I'm asking because I met Mikael at at Gateways Music Festival, like 2022, 2021, one of those years.
2021.
21, in Rochester, New York. And I think, like, I had played already, and I was real happy to be done. And so I went from backstage into the hall, and you played Bartók's Sonata.
Oh damn.
Yeah, and you played like you were so loose and fluid, and I was like, I don't think anything should be that easy for anybody ever. Like, and also it was one of the hardest pieces for a pianist to play, and I was just like, I think I hate him. Why is it so easy? Why does it sound so good? How can he have so much power and it looks like it, like a lot
I'm
of
just
very
7'2", that's why.
exactly my point. It's easy when you're 8'9". He's gonna be like 22 feet tall by the time this whole thing is over. But like I had never seen that kind of fluidity. I've actually seen it in other instrumentalists, but I'd never quite seen that in a pianist. And I was just so transfixed by that, and it really made me sort of like aspire to that, and it shifted my practicing around, and it was great. It actually like my practicing got better, my playing got better as a result of it. But why did I bring that up?
You asked me if I had technical kind of, if I ever hit any walls.
Yeah, because I can't imagine, because I was like, usually like as a player, we hold tension in random places and in weird ways. Not even if something isn't particularly hard, we'll hold our breath in certain places or do whatever, you know. But this guy just, I mean, you saw him just playing, flowing, grooving. It's like, and so now I'm asking, like, is anything ever hard, sir? Just, you know, inquiring minds want to know.
Should be
Really?
tough. Should be tough.
What's tough?
What's tough? Well, it's interesting. It's one of my teachers, this guy named Awadajan Pratt, fantastic pianist. He told me, he was like, because he started later. I started when I was like 13, 12, going on 13.
You started when you were 13. Mm-hmm.
So he was like, people that start later, the kind of development of the short twitch muscles, it's not going to be as ingrained. Mm-hmm. So like I'll have to, if I practice less, it'll be more noticeable. Mm-hmm. So he kind of implanted that in me. So I do feel, that's why I say I cherish the time I can sit at the instrument and actually dig back in. But I think I would say I don't care about the technicity of the piano. I mean, I can teach if I have to talk about things to do, but I want to have a vision of what I want and a clear ear of what I want. And I want the strength to do what I want. Or just have when the vision is that clear. And I've recorded myself a lot. Like we were talking about, how do you teach really learning how you listen? Because I learned as a pianist, this is the worst seat in the house. This is the worst seat to judge what you're doing. Because that fantasy realm of you're singing when you're playing, a lot of us are. And that singing can be blinding. That can be a filter in front of.
Absolutely masking what's happening.
But also the nature of the sound. I mean, you're producing sound and the acoustics. Like you're not gonna hear everything as clear as it will be just 6 feet right there. So I've been recording myself for many years, like just for like little stupid Instagram videos, but listening to a minute of your playing. You're like, oh, that thing I thought was so dope, it sounds bad. I'm taking so much time, or it's too fast, but the other way, sometimes I'm like, man, I can never get this passage how I want it, and I listen back, and it's already what I wish to be playing, but so it's just the worst seat in the house, and I've been this combination of training to project what I'm hearing out there, and to be a good judger of what's happening in the room at the moment, and to have these loose enough to do what I want, but not because piano playing isn't evenness. Piano playing is natural. A true legato is catching the decay of one note and doing it. Evenness is ding, ding, ding. You know what I mean? Evenness is not a true matching of the waveform. So that's what I'm trying to train. That's why I think technical things are good to develop muscles, but when it starts tinkering with the way you hear the instrument. I think that's an issue, and it's easy to let that happen.
I'm not sure if you answered my question though. And that's okay. I'm speaking specifically to like
Technical things.
like you have a kinesthetic gift, like that. I mean, I would argue that like if you were still playing sports, that there would be a sort of physical like there's some people who understand their body in space. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe I should say that when my hearing shifted to that, things were easier. I did have technical things where I was like, oh, this would feel uneven. And now I'm like, this is how this has to be.
You hear it, and then it's directly connected
then
to
it's
you.
better. So when I changed how I heard it, it made me feel better about my playing, and it felt more consistent.
And I would argue that that's something that we hear from our best teachers actually a lot. Like actually be very specific about what you want to hear, and you will invariably get it. Yeah.
It's the hardest thing to do. It's easy to let it happen and, pray. But we gotta grab it and shape it.
Sure. Before we wrap up, is there anyone else who has a question to offer? Yeah.
Sure. I so was struck by a couple things that you mentioned. One is the kind of when you started to think about improvising as opposed to kind of your approach to technique, and then also the idea of speaking in tongues and kind of like channeling, and the idea of something being kind of unassailable, like I can't remember the word you used, but how do you think about kind of craft, basically art versus craft, right? You spend a lot of time learning how to play something, but where do you put that line there?
That's interesting. That's the aesthetic debate too. That gets deep. I think the art that we do contains an extreme amount of craft, and then the organization of that craft and the application of that craft, I think it would be different. Like the difference between really nice elevator music. You know what I mean? It's like it's crafted. It's like this is the way that music is structured, but it serves its place as background music as opposed to like a chair, a table versus, or this versus a Giacometti or a Rodin or something. You know what I mean? It's actually this could be Giacometti, the slenderness of it, but I think obsession of craft it may not be healthy, but I think that's a trend in artists throughout history, is this obsession with craft and detail, but then the ability to connect it to the extremes of human emotion and the scope of what we are, and to tell a story with it. So I think craft is beautiful, and I think it's utilitarianism is amazing in that regard. But I think the art is like one step above craft, and it's highly subjective. That's the issue and the mystery. But I don't know if that answers your question a little bit.
Yeah. See, I guess that's great. Thank you. Yeah, I think of art as useless and craft as useful, but there's kind of this moment that for your approach, you have to transcend the craft to find the art.
Yeah, and the or just different uses. I think useless is harsh, but I understand the dichotomy for sure. But I feel like the numinist approach, like that art is kind of aspiring to something beyond normal use.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the usage itself, I think, is the difference. But and that's the hardest thing to label is what connects somebody spiritually, what creates a spiritual response, etc. But that's the fun stuff.
Yeah.
That's why your craft got to be 100% on point before you start talking about this other shit. Cool. But thank y'all so much for coming on this Friday evening.
This Friday evening, yeah. Before we leave, I want to thank Mikael for sharing so much of himself this evening, and I want to thank Steve and Reservoir for collaborating with us on this event. It was our inaugural attempt at this, and I think it's a beautiful idea, and we're going to continue producing events like this. It's really nice to be able to get to know an artist sort of in a more specific and intimate way, and I'm looking forward to doing more of these. I especially also want to take a moment to thank the Lower Manhattan Cultural Council for the grants that made this possible, and I want to encourage you to grab a postcard that will tell you more about the events in our Juneteenth 2024 festival. We've got a lot of fun stuff going on, and our final show is going to be on June 19th. It's a Wednesday. I know it's not the best possible day, but it's a Wednesday. It's going to be at Joe's Pub, and we urge you to join us. It'll be a lot of fun. And if you want more details, you can visit us at JuneteenthlP.org. And as always, I like to close these kinds of things by urging everyone to keep playing and making and supporting music wherever you are and at all times. Thank you guys very much. Good night.